Activity: Next of Kin is the 7th installment of the Paranormal Activity franchise. It's been 6 years since The Ghost Dimension, which they highly promoted as the final chapter. This is definitively the very last one. It's been weird having a couple years go by, and now we're getting another Paranormal Activity movie, because the way the franchise used to work was that it would be weird if a year went by and a movie didn't come out, because they came out so quickly, and now we have this extended break. And now they're back. And this movie's about a woman who is a documentary filmmaker who doesn't really know anything about her biological family. She tracks down one member of her family who is a part of an Amish community. Her mother was a part of that community, so they go out to that community and they only come to find spooky cult stuff, and they're filming everything. Because it's a documentary, so now it's a Paranormal Activity found footage motion picture. So I did something that I usually do when it comes to a big franchise movie coming out now, which is, even though I might think I know what I think of the other installments, go back and watch them anyways to A, refresh yourself on everything going on, and B, also try to see if you can give the movie another chance, because originally I viewed every single entry in the Paranormal Activity franchise as hot garbage. I'd never cared for them at all, but it's been a couple years since I've seen all of them in full, so I was like, I am 21 now. So maybe my tastes have matured a bit, maybe my tastes have kind of changed. Let's see what's happened here. And I've come to realize that I only like 2 of them, which is better than how it was originally. And I don't even really hate every single one of them. They all have some moments where they're kind of okay. Like the first movie, yeah, whatever, but 2 I enjoyed. 3 I actually liked too. I just kind of wish in retrospect that the franchise kind of wrapped up at 3, because, they told kind of a complete kind of story. We didn't need to see more, and, that was kind of the last point where the movies were actually good. So yeah, with 4, the marked ones, and especially The Ghost Dimension, they all kind of fell off, The Ghost Dimension obviously being the worst one. The Ghost Dimension, of course, leaving more questions than actual answers, or leaving a definitive end like they were promoting the film as. I'm pretty sure they just kind of said that because of diminishing box office returns. But now they've decided to try again, straight to streaming, Paramount Plus, because of, pandemic and theater releases and all that, which for a found footage movie might be more appropriate, because seeing just big shakiness on a big screen can be nauseating. So why are we here? Why are we making a new Paranormal Activity, though? Because, it has been 6 years. The franchise, it started off kind of like, hey, this is pretty cool, minimalist kind of horror, whatever. But then as the series went on, the critical response turned even more so negative. But now they're circling back to it. Must be for a bigger purpose. Must be because they found something really good to work with. So why are they making this movie? Why exactly have they decided to do this? The fuck if I know. Because it seems like in 2019, Jason Blum or someone from Blumhouse or Paramount was just like, hey, we're developing another Paranormal Activity movie, kind of starting off as like a studio thing. It was only in February of 2020, a month before everything hit the fan, that Christopher Landon was announced to be writing. And he has written 2, 3, the good ones, and then 4, and the marked ones. Not the worst one, which was The Ghost Dimension, but, that's when it kind of dipped. He even directed the marked ones. He's gone on to do movies like, the Happy Death Day films and Freaky, which are very enjoyable, fun movies. It's at the point where I look forward to a Christopher Landon directing and writing project now, because he makes some fun stuff that I do legitimately enjoy, and I like seeing what he brings behind the camera, how he energizes the cast. But that being said, him being announced to only write this movie didn't really get me more excited for it, especially since I know he's been involved with this franchise for a bit, and this franchise ain't perfect. But then, exactly a year later, this year of February 2021, they announced William Eubank was going to be directing, who previously did Underwater last year in 2020. Once again, before everything hit the fan. And that was a movie that kind of got a cult following as far as like hardcore horror fans went, and they really enjoyed that movie, and I was more so on it, It wasn't terrible, and it had some pretty strong direction, but just as a movie overall, I was kind of iffy on it, not my favorite thing in the world. So him doing a Paranormal Activity movie to follow that up, though, was really odd to me. Because it's like, hey, you just did a big budget kind of CGI fest with creatures underwater, these big name actors. Why are you reverting to not just a found footage movie, but a Paranormal Activity movie? this is odd, you know? The look of the trailer made it look like maybe it wasn't all gonna be found footage, so I kind of went in expecting that, so maybe this is something different. Maybe we do have something different here, and it's not. It's just, they were so lazy to actually achieve the found footage aesthetic, the reason why this genre is popular, that they just used regular movie cameras to do literally every single shot of this movie. Now, at first, they have the excuse of, hey, she's a documentary filmmaker, whatever. So it's like, all right, maybe, but every single camera that they cut to in this movie, whether it be like, you know, one of those big ones you carry around, or like a DSLR, or even a drone shot, a police body cam video at one point, it all looks exactly the same. The video quality looks professional. It looks like it's been processed and expertly prepared and lit and everything. And that's just not how every single camera works, especially since the essence of the found footage genre is that it is found. You know, it's found when maybe you do have these perfect shots set up, but then someone's futzing with the camera or moving it around. You know, it's not supposed to look perfect all the time. It's supposed to kind of have that aesthetic of, this is homemade. You obviously know that this isn't real, but the quality, man, they really captured that homemade quality. Not here. They just decided, hey, just set up the big fucking expensive camera. That's going to be shooting literally everything. In fact, we're going to be cutting to shots where no one's going to know where the camera is. You know, like, you're just kind of thinking, where is the camera when they cut to this person? This is why I thought when I was watching the trailer, like, so is it found footage mixed in with, like, not found footage? Or, like, what's going on here? But no, it's literally just because they just used regular movie cameras, and also they seemingly cheat, just cutting to wherever they want and just going like, oh, maybe there's a GoPro on them, I don't know. You know, just like, hey, maybe they have a body cam that's like pointed right up at their face when they're doing something important, you know? They don't even really utilize the fact that it is like a found footage aesthetic all that well into the scares. If anything, it feels like they were held back from making a somewhat better, more enjoyable movie by doing it. I can only think of the one time at the very end of this movie where I thought, hey, as far as like a found footage thing goes, this is actually a pretty neat setup for the scene. This movie isn't completely awful. I should probably preface that first. You know, the setup for the story, it's a solid one, you know, for a horror movie goes. It's an interesting setup. There's some ideas for scares that I thought were pretty neat, like involving a ghost laying down on a bed, but obviously it just, when I describe it, it sounds goofy, but when you see it in the movie, it's like, hey, that's not a bad idea at all for a scare. The acting isn't all bad either. Like, there's no one in this cast where I can officially say they are just awful at acting and they shouldn't be allowed to be in movies. Like, no, everyone does a solid job for what they have available to them. And there are certain things visually, like, you know, the design of like this Amish landscape and, you know, the costumes they have to wear where it looks pretty good, you know, it looks authentic. And then you have like this CGI monster near the end that actually looks pretty damn good as far as like a CGI effect goes. It's actually really good. I was surprised at how good it actually looked. So there are things that I can look at in this movie and go like, you know what, you had something here. We could have maybe had something. Maybe it wouldn't have been like the most revolutionary thing we've ever seen or anything, but if you can focus on the characters and you can focus on just a well-rounded good movie, then we might have something special here. But instead it's trapped in a Paranormal Activity movie where, you know, when you have your main character introduced in the film, it's a very quick exposition dump to the camera of, hello, my name is da-da-da, and I'm doing this because of this, I have this motivation, this is my drive for the rest of the film. You technically understand what their motivation is, but you didn't naturally get to know this character. They're just dumping this on you in the beginning of this film in a way that's very quick, and every other character, you barely know them. You know, the characters that are supposed to kind of matter as the movie goes on, you barely know them. You don't form a connection with them. When bad stuff starts to happen, not only do you not feel anything, but you feel like the characters don't feel anything. There's a weird lack of urgency in this movie that I found weird. It's a lot of, we've recorded something really weird that normally someone would look at and go, okay, let's get the fuck out of here, right? But instead they're like, what do you think this is all about? That's a little interesting. I don't know. Let's continue to stay and investigate stuff. And it's like, even when stuff starts to really hit the fan later, it seems like there's just this weird lack of like just fear or panic, you know? It's only at the last second possible where they really start to like freak out and run like, go, go, go. But at that point, it's too late. You're completely alienated from these people because they don't feel like real people. They feel like horror movie characters. Worst of all, they feel like dumb found footage Fako characters. There's plenty of points where it seems like characters just don't notice things, just feeding into the lack of urgency, but also just like, everything else. Like, a woman's being attacked at one point, and they're like, they showed these other two characters that are like asleep in the exact room where this woman is being knocked around. They don't wake up, and you're thinking, were they drugged earlier? I can't tell because I can't remember if that was a scene or not. It's all possible. Maybe there's some demonic influence making them not wake up, but it just seems like maybe they were just being lazy. You know, considering everything else about this movie, it wouldn't be that hard for me to just assume the filmmakers are just lazy and don't want these guys to wake up, you know, but this scene has to take place here. It seems like when they do like the night vision thing at one point and it's, you know, it's the screen goes green, it seems like the light from the camera is still on. Maybe I'm just crazy, but it seemed like the light from the camera is still on. And this person is under a bed hiding from a man walking into the room, and the camera's pointing right at him, and it just seemed like, man, do you not notice the light? Like, it seems like maybe that was just, you know, the movie playing tricks on me, but it seemed like there was a light. In fact, at one point she goes up to a window and there is a light on, and it just looks very similar to what we were just seeing. So I don't know. It just seems like people are dumb and not noticing anything. And also it's weird that there's post-production editing in this movie, this found footage. They've taken the time to take a shot where someone is getting killed and the camera just so happens to be like shaking at that image. They managed to slow it down and do a slow-mo shot of someone getting ripped, which, you know, hey, normally that would look pretty cool in a horror movie, but for Paranormal Activity, where the camera only focuses and stays still for this one shot, it's like, no. I'm not saying you can't do slow-mo on your cameras or anything, obviously not, but just the way someone would shake the camera like that, the slow-mo is not going to look that pristine at all. It's going to look awkward. You need expert kind of setup to pull off what they're showing you in this moment, and that's not what they have. There's jump scare sound effects when a camera turns around in the dark and all of a sudden it lands on someone. There's a weird sting of BLAH, and it's like, this is supposed to be found footage. You're not supposed to hear this stuff. That's what makes it even creepier, is that when stuff shows up in frame, especially if it's right there, it's just there. You just hear the character reactions. You don't hear a noise, a sound effect added later. But this movie does that. You know, this movie doesn't understand what it is. It's so bizarre to me. And at one point, I was really like, I was watching the movie and all of a sudden it hit me, holy shit, that's a score playing right now. That's a musical score, not something happening in the scene. It's a musical score done by a composer. Has this happened before and I just missed it or something? All of a sudden music started to score the background of the action. And it's like, why are you doing this? Why do you not know you're making a found footage movie? This is crazy to me. It's weird because William Eubank previously made Underwater, which, you know, maybe the story wasn't the best or anything, but it at least showed promise as far as like a technical filmmaker, you know? Whether it's big budget filmmaking or it can even be small budget filmmaking, it shows his potential as far as like a craftsman. And then what they've decided to do with his career is give him a movie, Paranormal Activity Next of Kin, that makes him look incompetent, because it seems like there's so many different like fails as far as filmmaking goes. It's like, what is happening here? You can't capture the aesthetic of found footage. You can't even be consistent with the rules of the found footage genre. You have no idea what you're doing. There's attempts at comedy in this movie that don't really help me care for the characters either. It's not anything annoying or really awful, but it's constant flat lines. Some of the way lines are read and delivered is a little wonkus. There's so many aspects of this movie where I was like, I am just not on board with what is going on here. It seems like this just didn't need to be made, especially since, of course, this movie ends in a way where you're like, I have no idea how this is supposed to connect with the rest of the franchise. Is it supposed to? I guess not. But also, what are we supposed to be building to exactly? I don't feel like I've seen a complete story, but I don't care about the characters enough to say, you know, at least this character had a character arc. I was invested in them, you know, so I'm interested in that way. It was just constant uninterest in this movie. And I don't know why they made the decision to make another one of these. It feels like everyone is just done with Paranormal Activity. This movie came out on Paramount Plus, and I have barely heard anybody talk about it. No one cares about Paranormal Activity Next of Kin right now. You know, I can't imagine a diehard fan of the Paranormal Activity franchise watching this movie and going like, man, that really got back to the good old days when those movies were good and not utter garbage like Ghost Dimension. Even Ghost Dimension, despite the fact it had that terrible, awful creative decision of having the 3D camera, at least even that had a little bit of a homemade quality to it. Like, hey, it's a stupid ass camera, but the quality isn't perfect. It's not pristine like a regular movie looking camera. This is, though. It's better than the Ghost Dimension in the sense that there's somewhat more to appreciate, what they're trying to do, but I wish they did it outside of Paranormal Activity. I wish they didn't make a found footage movie. Because what's even the point? Why are we still doing this? I'm gonna give Paranormal Activity Next of Kin a C-. It's just nothing to write home about, nothing to get angry about either. It's just a whatever movie. It's literally the definition of just a throwaway piece in the content machine that is the fucking movie TV industry at this moment, the streaming industry. So if you really want to watch the next installment of Paranormal Activity, where they don't really properly set up what you're supposed to care about for future installments or anything like that, then go ahead and subscribe to Paramount Plus. You can watch Clifford there too. But if you've seen Next of Kin, leave in the comments below what you thought of it. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.